thank you everybody for joining us. It's great to have you here. And thank you very much, Michael, for joining us from Seed Legals. Michael is the country manager with Seed Legals, and it's a one-stop platform for all the legals you need to get funded and grow your business. So they help you create the exact legal documentation you need to start your company, through to helping you with all the tools and documents and expert support to raise funding. So not everybody needs to raise funding or wants to raise funding, Michael, do they? It's a particular type of business owner that wants to do that. So you help with founder agreements and hiring agreements and cap tables, which is applicable.
Absolutely. It's one of those sort of constant debates you have. We're very much focused on startups for funding rounds. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But it's fair to say anyone who has even a family business or starts a business with some friends, there's going to come to a point where somebody wants to leave or you want to move on. And at that point, then you think, good, imagine we had actually sat down and agreed who owned what and how much of what and what terms we all owned it on. So we can have this, it's starting a business it's like a marriage, except you know it's going to end in divorce and you have to make sure it's as amicable as you can right from the beginning. So it's, we would encourage everyone to get good fundamentals in place.
Yeah, and in the excitement of starting, you obviously, you often don't even want to think about that, do you? But it's, you repent at leisure then, I take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The excitement is why we all do it, and we're entrepreneurs. But yes, as you say, in the same regard, sadly, people and their circumstances change, so you have to be ready for it.
Yeah. So could you, let's start, but if you could just start telling us a little bit about Seed Legals, you know, when it was set up, when it, how it started, why it started, because we're all business owners here and we're always interested in other businesses and how they started. And then let us know how you can help us.
Brilliant. Well, just to give you background on Seed Legals, it was founded in 2017 by Anthony Rose and Lauren Lafay. So Anthony is a serial entrepreneur. He comes from a digital background. He was involved in the BBC iPlayer when it was being created. He helped build that and drove that project, but was investing in lots of startups. And what he was increasingly seeing was people going straight to lawyers, people overcomplicating every process of an investment round, a lack of standardization across the market, and just general frustration from experienced investors and founders who were keen just to get things started and to get things moving and not to be bogged down in expensive legals. And he met Laurent, who was also a seasoned investor and was experiencing the same problems. So they came together and decided to do something about it. Using the good startup vocabulary, they identified the problem and they were keen to try and develop and find that solution. So over the last 5.5 years now, they have taken that idea and they've built the platform. And the driving force behind the platform is creating a really smooth user experience for a founder to allow them to come online. As we just discussed there, once you start your startup, so you can go on there and create your co-founder agreements with your fellow founders, so you can then go on and create your first cap table and then go through a funding round if you're bringing on investment. If you want to use a SAFE or a seed fast, as we call it, you can do that on the platform. And then once your business is funded and you're starting to grow, in the United Kingdom, you can use it to do your R&D tax credits and avail of their SCIS, EIS tax efficient investment tool for UK investors. And you can also use it to create your option pool and your EMI scheme. And they were growing very quickly in the UK. And about a year ago, they felt that they were having increasing inquiries from Irish founders and Irish startups. So they had helped some Irish founders, but they really felt that they needed to have a presence on the ground. So I was brought on board towards the end of second half of last year. And what we've been doing is taking the platform and localizing documentation for Irish companies doing funding rounds. We've developed our option scheme, so it is applicable for our startups as well. And we are also helping Irish companies who want to raise money in the United Kingdom. If they want to avail of SEI, CIS, we can help them do that as well. We're very excited. We have our an Irish head of legal starting on Monday. So he's going to be, he's based in Dublin. He's going to be helping us really refine the platform and make it even better, help clients with our partner law firms to do things. Worth noting, we're not a law firm. We don't give legal advice. And we have partner law firms that we work with. So if you come to us with a specific legal problem, we will work with our partners to answer and help you solve those problems.
Okay.
Wherever possible, we try to keep things as standardized as we possibly can. And we're working with quite a few Irish companies at the minute. It's great fun. It's great watching companies grow. It's great working with early stage founders and that excitement, that enthusiasm, and also working with investors as well, and just trying to keep things as straightforward and simple as everyone as you possibly can, because the fundamental is don't make mistakes at the beginning. Keep it simple at the beginning, because when you get that big investment round, when you get that big offer to purchase your company, don't let it fall down because of something you overlooked, didn't bother to do, forgot about day one. That's really my big message anyway. Get it done early. Makes it just so much easier.
Great. Okay. Tell us what we need to do.
Great. That's right. I'll take you through some slides. I've obviously tried to do far too much in the period of time that we have, so apologies if my Northern Irish rambly accent gets a bit too much. I'll try and keep it slow and think, but I'll send this out with some notes around it, some links to other things, and I'm always available for calls afterwards if anyone wants to.
Super.
So what I'm going to talk about really today is about your investor readiness, those startup funding fundamentals, talk about cap tables, we'll dip into valuation and term sheets, and what your funding round might look like, a little bit about getting organized, and then promoting your raise. I think the cliche is always it takes twice as long to raise money as you think it will. I think I might have fallen into the same trap with this presentation, but anyway, I'll fire on.
Yeah.
So startup funding fundamentals. This is that key point that Rosie mentioned right at the beginning. Not every company will take on outside investment. If you're lucky enough to have started a business which can attract early revenue, early market share, and you're growing quickly, and you have a very profitable business, there's a very good chance that you'll be able to grow that business without taking on outside investment. It might also be a decision that you make as founders, that you don't want outside influences, you don't want outside noise, you want to have the freedom to grow the business as you want to. And that is entirely up to you. And I think the thing just to remember, as I mentioned earlier, was if you do decide that, write that down in a co-founders agreement. Make sure that everyone knows what you're doing around the table, make sure everyone agrees. That document will change and evolve as you grow, as you bring on more team and staff. Make sure that everyone knows what it is that you're doing. You can still have an option pool, and you can still incentivize staff and keep staff by giving them shares in the company, but you mightn't want to bring in outside staff. But if you do decide that the product or the service that you're developing will not be built quickly enough, and that you'll be able to recruit staff quickly enough, and you'll be able to grow quickly enough to take advantage of the market opportunities that's there, that's when investment becomes attractive. And that's when you go out to the market to try and raise that investment. So what are the things that you really have to think about before you take that step? So I think the key questions come down to what you need the money for. Is this money for advertising? Is it for building out a team? Is it for developing a product? Is it money to really pivot the business and take it in a completely different direction that you thought you were going to go to originally? You have to have a clear vision of what that money is going to be used and what's going to be spent on, because then you're going to understand what you're going to be deliver off the back of it. I think this will all make a little bit of sense when we come in to talk about valuation. But I think the key thing around this is confidence. Like how are you going to scale it, and then what's success going to look like in 3 to 5 years? You have to be really confident in your business and in your idea before you go out for investment. You can't do this meekly, you can't do this shyly or apologetically. You have to be confident to say, this is an amazing opportunity, and it's going to slip by if we don't really grow it. And what we need to do that is cash. And I think that comes down to then what do you need? Do you want people who are going to bring that money, and are they going to sit alongside you? Are they going to be smart investors who help you along the way, who make introductions to you? Maybe if you're not a technical founder, are they going to help guide you through the tech maze and help you onboard technical staff to build your platform, your product? Or do you want more passive investors? Anthony Rose at Seed Legals is an experienced entrepreneur. His attitude is very much, you have the money, I have the brilliant idea, and I'm going to make you lots of money. Therefore, give me your money and leave me alone to get on with it. Everyone's slightly different in that. And then I think there's also questions about where do you want the money to come from? Not only people, but it can also be from geographical issues as well. If you want to break into new markets or you want to expand internationally, sometimes you want to get money from those new markets that you want to go into. I think a good example is Buy Local. They did a crowdfunding round on Seedrs in the UK because they wanted to break into the UK market, and I thought that raising money there would be a great way to get initial traction, to get support on the ground, to build up their support base from while they're in Ireland, and that gave them both cash but also a new market to get into. I think the other thing to think about as well is before you start giving or before you start selling shares in your company, make sure that you've explored all grants, loans, and soft money.
Yeah,
I'm sure, Rose, you have conversations a lot about loans and debt for businesses versus personal loans, and often early stage founders are very scared by loans because they feel like it's a personal debt. But the company limited guarantees for a reason. Do you encourage loans wherever you can as well?
We don't encourage either, really, because I think every person is different. But I would think from experience, and I would think it's a good exercise to look at grants, because you have your local enterprise office and Enterprise Ireland and those various competitions. I think they can also serve to help give feedback on your business model, to give you that confidence to go out and ask for money from institutions or wherever else you want to go. And the loans really, I suppose, they're just going to base your business plan on your ability to pay back the loan. And if you're confident in that, then, go for it. I would say this is perhaps the distinct difference, isn't it? In you're going to launch an innovative startup, which is going to be high growth and maybe no income for a while, you're not going to be able to pay that loan back. So it's a different pathway you're taking as a business owner. So I wouldn't leap into any of these things. I think what we try and do is introduce clients and subscribers to as many different providers as possible. So we've quite a a lot of information for everything from microfinance, which is, if you're refused a loan, you can go to Microfinance Ireland. Would always suggest people start at local enterprise office, and people can get frustrated with that, because it's a bit slow, that, and you're excited about your startup, you're excited about what you want to do, and that can slow you down a bit and make you start looking around at other shiny objects that might, get to where you want to be quickly. So I would say it's a great question. Have you explored everything? Keep talking to people, and keep talking, I would say, to other founders as well, what their experience is, because you're really going to be giving away equity in your business here. And as you said, it's a marriage. It's going to end in divorce, but you want that marriage to be a happy one while it lasts.
Exactly. I think that sort of brings us on to the cap table. So apologies if everyone already on the call knows what the cap table is, but just for those who don't, so your cap table is basically the ownership list of your business, of who has a share, how many shares they have, and what their valuation is. And we'll come on to evaluation in a bit. And I think the important thing is to leave a share of your business available for share option pool for staff and advisors. It is increasingly difficult in Ireland, as we all know, getting and retaining high quality staff, particularly in technical businesses. And therefore, being able to offer a share in the business is very important. It also incentivizes everyone to stay along when things get tough, because there's a big prize there at the end to keep them going. And I think one thing worth mentioning when you start and when you're forming your company and you're starting out right at the beginning, you have to allocate shares to the founding shareholders. What we would suggest is to make as many shares sort of as you can at the beginning. It's obviously with a low value. It means then that when you come to bring on investors and allocate shares across the funding round, the maths gets an awful lot easier, rather than having to break up €1 shares or €2 shares. If you can make them into cents, then you can share them out an awful lot easier. But I think make sure you get your cap table sorted out, and I'll add in notes when I send this on about some information just around building a cap table and how that looks like. Because without a cap table, you can't have a valuation. So this is often in the crux of any investment round, and it's going to be a bone of contention, discussion, debate, argument, until you and your investors settle on what the valuation of the company is. Obviously, the investors are going to want to push down the valuation as much as they can, so they can get as many shares as they can for their investment. But I think you have to go in with confidence when you're talking about valuation. One big point, just to make it right at the beginning, about investment rounds and raising investment. Unfortunately, in Ireland, and probably across Europe, there's the people with the money hold too much control and power often around investment rounds and discussions. They have the cash, therefore they often perceive themselves to be in the driving seat, which it isn't really right. I think a clumsy analogy, but they have the seed. You have the fertile soil. You have the ability to take that seed and nurture it into a crop. You have the ability to harvest that crop and go and sell it for an awful lot more money than the seed was originally worth. And if you don't do that for them, their money's going to sit in their bank and get eaten away by inflation. Therefore, you have to have the confidence to go into investor conversations with a level of parity. They're not more important than you because they have cash. They need you as much as you need them. So that's a relationship how it has to be. And good investors will recognize that, and good investors will treat you like that. Bad investors will be patronizing, condescending, difficult. If they're going to be like that, you have to make a decision really early. Is their money
Yeah.
worth it?
Yeah. You don't want to be in that kind of a marriage, do you? With patronizing and condescension from the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you want to take a phone call whether things are going well or going bad. When you see their name pop up on your phone, it has to be something good. I want to talk to them because you're going to give me some help, or I'm going to talk to them because I've got some great news for them. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that sort of guiding principle runs over everything. So
Okay.
and it comes from, and where you get that relationship from is by being confident, but also being really well prepared. When you're putting together a valuation, the easy way is just to say, there's some comparable startups up there who, and this sort of quite loose chart we have there showing sort of average valuations that the SeedLegals guys have recognized across in London. I think it's quite similar here in Ireland. You can just say, we're an early stage startup, we're at this point, therefore we're worth this. If you don't back that up then by saying, we have that because what we're going to do is take your money. We're going to use that money in year 1 and 2 to build out the product and to bring on early businesses, which are going to generate us X amount of recurring revenue. We're going to then in year 2 and 3 really double revenue on a year-on-year basis, plus add in these other features which will broaden out our market. Year 4, we're going to expand internationally, which will allow us by year 5 and year 7 to have captured X amount of business with an EBITDA of Y. And it's very, and you'll be sitting there at the minute in a co-working space, working on a bit of code, thinking, how on earth is that realistic? If you're serious about doing this and you're serious about growing a business and growing a team to deliver it, you got to have that confidence that that's what where you're going to get to. Because if you don't have that confidence, you can't express that to investors. They're not going to be convinced that you can really grow that seed and harvest it. So build out that model and build out that picture of how you can do that. If you're working on financials and you're not confident with it, speak to Rose and her team, and have confidence around your number, understand where your numbers come from. If you do ask an accountant to help you with your numbers, you can't just pass it over to them, get something back and say, well, I've done my numbers, I'm fine now. You have to know where those numbers come from and where they're going to. Because once you have that confidence and you have that vision, it means then when you go and you talk about valuation, you can really back it up really strongly. Excuse me. If you want to raise investment and you're struggling with really recognize what your valuation is, or if you want to raise some money, maybe to finish building a prototype, to deliver it to a potential client that you have, and they've potentially said, look, we're keen to work with you if you can deliver this product, we're going to give you a contract for X or Y, and you know that that's going to then give you a valuation maybe 6 months or a year down the line that you can't really stand over at the minute. You can use SAFE, we call it a seed fast. So that really is it's a subscription for future investment, for future equity in your business. So you can use a SAFE, which will say, if you give me X amount of money on these terms, at 18 months time, when I do an actual funding round, this money you've given me will then convert into shares. And because you've backed me before I have that valuation, you'll get a discount of maybe 15% of what you put in. So it's a mechanism to allow you to raise money if you can't stand over your valuation right at the minute, because you've got future plans that are going to maybe alter or shape what that valuation is going to be. They're also very popular for US investors like SAFEs. A lot of their big funds will offer out SAFEs, say, look, here is some early stage funding, go away and deliver what you say you're going to deliver. We'll use this as a as a sort of a test to see what you're able to do. With an
And Michael,
expectation.
how is it different to shares then? That they're not. It's almost like a business loan, is it?
Yes, it's almost like a business loan. So
Okay.
it's sort of it's money in expectation of a future funding round.
Okay. So does it have the same for the investor? Does it have the same security? Not. It's more high risk, I suppose.
It's more high risk for the investor, which is why they
Yeah.
then get that good discount further on.
So is it generally used by like friends and family, that type of?
Yeah,
Okay.
friends and family, or you will get some angel investors who will set aside very speculative, like the bottom 5% of their pot, and they'll give out small, and they're usually smaller checks of 5, 10, 15 grand, just to help. It's almost to help an early stage founder, say, deliver that first prototype, maybe do that marketing campaign, because they're doing the big launch and the big release, so they know they need to put some money into marketing to get those initial sales on board.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way of putting, and it's also a very fast way of putting money in as well. So if
Okay.
the investor recognizes the opportunity, but everyone around the table realizes they don't have 5 weeks, 6 weeks to do the proper due diligence that they need,
Mm-hmm.
and this investor puts some money in now just to help us get to that point, and then we'll see what we can do. So
And is there a time limit then for how long that can stay in there, or is that all?
Yeah, it's there's usually, you can set in a time scale around it. I think the Irish and the US usually would go for a year to 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking on a UK investor and they want to get SEIS relief, they'll look for 6 months. Personally, I think you need 12 to 18 months in anything like this, because what realistically, 6 months can evaporate very quickly.
Sure.
But it is a good option to do something friends and family reasonably quickly, and it stops you then having to put a valuation on before you're necessarily ready. But I'll send through some additional notes on this as well, my slides. So you might have done your SAFE. You're then looking to do your actual investment round, and term sheets come up. So when you're talking to investors, I know if you go to the likes of HBAN, some of our more established early stage funders in Ireland, they will slide a term sheet across the desk to you and tell you that these are our standard terms that we work to. If you want our money, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
Their nice lawyer will be standing, hovering somewhere in the background, staring at.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. I like a founder to have the confidence to walk in and slide their term sheet across the table and say, this is what we're offering you.
Okay.
The holy grail is that everyone swaps the term sheet, and then they realize, actually, yes, most early stage term sheets are pretty similar.
Okay.
Which is why Seed Legals came along. They will state the value of the company and what shares are available.
Mm-hmm.
I think terms look out for preemption rights, which means if you go, when early investors come in and you want to go for a future funding round, original shareholders have the right to buy more shares before it goes out to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Drag along and tag along rights. This is a similar. I think tag along and drag along are designed to make sure that early investors can also come along and aren't disadvantaged by bigger investors who can take advantage of a fresh funding round without smaller investors getting that opportunity to come along with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives people the opportunity to, if for whatever reason there's going to be an investment round, they don't want to be diluted, they can buy more shares to make sure that they maintain their percentage. In investor consent, yeah, I think that's standardized, making sure that investors are consulted before any significant shareholding and things are carried out. So it's usually at 75%. One thing to be very aware of when you get given a term sheet are preference shares and liquidation preferences. This is something which can really harm you later on if you don't understand what's exactly there. Preference share will give potentially better voting rights to certain shareholders. So you have to be careful with that, that if you bring on new investors and they get preference shares, some of your founding shareholders or other investors coming in won't be able to contribute to decision making in the same way, which can put them at a disadvantage if the company comes to be bought or there's another significant event. So you have to be careful around that. Liquidation preference is also very important as well. So that means if the company is bought, if you have liquidation preferences, certain people get allocated their share of the business before other shareholders do. And if you have an event where you have other loans and you have a valuation that maybe wasn't where you hoped it was going to be, and too many preference shares given away, what you think if you have a 20% share actually then drops way down the other share rights and liquidation preferences. So you have to be very, very careful around that. And I'll send some notes alongside this as well, just for you to read up around that, just to protect yourself as a founder and a founding shareholder. Board approvals as well are something to be very careful about. Some term sheets will say that board approvals, some investors will insist on taking a seat on the board or an observer position on the board. So you have to be very happy with them if you're going to give them a seat on your board. And when they're there, if your company has board approval, and sometimes it even has investor approval for certain matters, you have to be careful what those things are. Right at the beginning, you can sort of overlook things such as approvals of, say, a spend over 20,000 euros or 50,000 euros, which you think might be okay. But then you realize you can't recruit a member of staff without getting approvals to do that. So you just have to make sure that the approvals don't slow the business down, limit what you want to do. You don't want to be calling extraordinary board meetings or having to get investor consent for things on a regular basis. It has to be just for major business decisions. On your term sheet, you'll also have any founder and other loans detailed in there. Keep a really close eye on founder loans or early investors. If they come in and say, like, I'm going to invest this in the company, but I'll also lend you some working capital as well. Make sure you know what your interest rates are. There are some horrible stories of early investors putting in 50 grand at a 5-10% interest rate, which then rolls over for 5 years, and then when you come to exit, this sort of slides out of nowhere, and then you realize that your exit is really just repaying that original founder loan. So just be really careful and keep close attention to it, and make sure when you're doing your annual accounts, you track what that loan's actually sitting at and what it looks like for your valuation and everything. Just be careful about that. And then warranties, there's likely to be warranty on the term sheet, which just basically says that you as a founder haven't lied and made everything up. Now, you will have, as you described, the valuation in your vision and your strategy and what you're going to do. You're allowed, there's a degree of professional visionary license, but what you can't make up are things such as who actually owns your IP, who owns your tech, what tech you're using, what stage your tech's at, that you actually, sales that you've claimed to have, that you actually have made those sales, contracts that you have actually been signed, all that stuff. But what often we have is a warranty which says, if it turns out that you've been talking absolute nonsense, everyone gets their shares and their money back, but you can also have to pay a sum of money sort of in compensation. So that's usually a liability cap, which is usually set at the founder's annual salary, or around 20 €20,000 is often a floor that we see as well. But that's something none of you guys would ever have to worry about, because you wouldn't make any of those sorts of mistakes. So that's the term sheet. Shareholders agreements are often talked about. But what we often experience is that you have a shareholders agreement and a term sheet that cover the same stuff. So you don't really need to mess about too much with a shareholders agreement and then a term sheet. If you just work off your term sheet, it's sort of the Bible.
And Michael, then what you describe is that a founder should arrive with their own term sheet, in other words. And is that generally accepted by investors, or?
It depends who you're talking to. So if you're doing a friends and family round and your man up the road who's made a few quid, he knows helping out a few people do some things, bring along your own term sheet to them. If you're going to HBAN or a more sophisticated angel syndicate or a fund, they will likely have their own term sheet ready for you to go. So those are the ones that you have to sort of keep a close eye on for sort of these key points. Yeah, run it by a friendly lawyer if you're not sure of anything that's there. And don't be embarrassed to go back with a lot of red pen over it and say, like, I can't do that, I can't do that. And even if that investor is a nationally recognized angel syndicate, even if that is Enterprise Ireland, don't be embarrassed to go back and say that's. If you go back with good rationale, good reasoning, and justification, if they're a good investor, they will consider that and they will have flexibility. They all say these are the terms that we do with everyone, and you have to accept them or we won't do the deal. If they're serious, they will have flexibility around that. If they like what you're doing, like your vision and like your ability to execute that, they will have flexibility as well. So don't be passive. So yeah, so then you have to get organized. So you've got your term sheet, but that's only one of the bits of paper. And yeah, this is one of those horrible slides.
Okay. Aside from running their business, they need to do all of this. So hard.
It is so tough.
Yeah.
And there's little things you can overlook that get important. So your IP assignment, make sure that you know who owns all your IP. If you've been using a great team of developers overseas, make sure that you own all of the stuff that they've been developing, and that it's all yours, that you know what they've been doing, you know what's in the tech stack that's been built, so you know if there's any technical debt in there. You've got to get a nice pitch deck put together. Yeah, co-founder agreements, employee consultants and advisor bios and contracts. Get all that good contracts in place and co-founder agreements, which you can do in the SeedLegals platform. Make sure your company incorporation and all that's up to date in the CRO. We all have something we should have done, which we've not quite got around to. Get around to it, do it. Insurance, make sure you have all the correct professional insurance stuff in place. Yeah, work with your accountants to get your financials properly done. Support everything with a really good sales and marketing strategy to see where you're going to go to. Yeah, customer testimonials are really nice to have. Make sure that everything that you do is consistent in your branding, and get close to your Enterprise Ireland local officer. Yeah, at SeedLegals, we've worked with a number of companies who are in the high performance high
potential startup.
Yep. So unfortunately, they're the people who take on the cumulative preference share instrument that they give out to the 80 companies a year. Unfortunately, we can't support that on the platform because it's such an unusual investment instrument. It's something our new lawyer is going to be handed on Monday morning to say, how do we get that onto our platform? But we would still encourage people to use that. We can help you before you take on the investment and after that converts into shares. But while it's a loan, notes, preference share, just doesn't sit on our platform.
Okay.
So yeah, so as I say, there's all this stuff you have to get organized. And sadly, not one piece is more important than the other piece. They're all important.
And Michael, in terms of say what Seed Legals has done is gathered documentation, all the probably templates, etc. And you're not a law firm, so do you find? I'm thinking, for example, for Accountant Online, we generally do compliance for founders, but for financials, for this, you would need really to sit down with your accountant and go through your business plan to have projections, wouldn't you? It's a real kind of, and as you describe it, I think really well, like you can't hand it over to an accountant. You really need to sit down and say, I buy things at this price and sell them at this, and this is what I think, because you have the market knowledge, don't you? You have, an accountant just doesn't have that to know the rate of growth, the rate of expected conversion rate even of sales or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think it is. I get a bit frustrated when you hear people talk at accelerators and incubators where they say, oh yeah, I don't even read business plans. What's the point of business plans? They just slow you down and get in the way. Which is a really, I find it's a slightly patronizing, flippant thing to say. Now I do agree that if you sit down and create a fresh business plan for everything you go for, yes, that's silly. But if you are growing your business and you think in your head of your different sort of business departments, and although it's only you and maybe a couple of other people, you need to know what your mate who's looking after sales and marketing, you need to know what they're up to and what they're doing. So they need to have something written down showing what they're doing. Likewise, as you say, your finance guy, whether it's in-house or external, their stuff has to be there and to marry in with that sales and marketing. Your technology guy, he has his tech stack and he's building the product to deliver things, and he's going to be doing testing, and he's going to be doing all sorts of stuff, but he's also going to have a vision of where he wants it to get to. That then has to link back into your financials, because what's it going to cost to do that? And I think having all that stuff in one place, whether you want to put it into one document called the business plan or have it all there, it all has to be done. And then when you come from investment, every investor comes from a certain background. You'll talk to one guy who used to be an accountant. He'll glance through everything, go straight to your numbers. You'll speak to the techie investor, he'll glance at everything else, go straight to the tech stack. And then the marketing, charismatic guy, he's all about vision, sales, marketing, he'll go straight to that. If you don't have that, you're going to potentially lose them. So as painful as it is.
Very painful. Like, I mean, fair play to everybody who's on this call or receiving this this recording. We don't want to turn anybody off, but this is a lot of work, isn't it? And it does need to fall into place for you to be able to get funding and get the right investors on board.
Exactly. And once you get in the pattern, and it's like everything as well, once you get into the pattern and the habit of doing this stuff, it does get an awful lot easier. Because then you're just updating and improving. When you onboard staff, you've got stuff to direct them to and show them. This is part of this is the team you're joining. This is what we're doing in here, which will make it easier.
I found even doing applications for local enterprise office, painful as they are, or even Enterprise Ireland, it does give you a discipline that you need to. You have to state what your vision is and your mission. And as you say, then everybody aligns around that. You have to put that down, don't you?
So does doubt. Because you can lose direction so quickly, or someone can go in a slight different direction, and you want to just keep the ship going in the same direction.
We have a question.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, we have a question from Eamon. Is it best not to have authorized share capital and just have issued share capital? As new investors come on board, you can issue new shares?
I think you can Yeah, I think it's those two. If you're going to do a rolling investment round, that does make sense to have. And then if you're then putting where authorized is more, if you've got an end date and you have a recognized number of bigger investors who you want to all come together on one specific investment moment, then and the authorized is there as well. So I think it just depends on which route you want to go on.
So it's best not to have authorized share capital and just have issued share capital.
I think I would yeah, issued share capital makes more sense.
Okay.
Other questions at this point?
Not we have Dusan has put in some information about his startup in Austria, but it's quite detailed, and I think possibly better to send to you in an email. Yeah, if we have time before the end, we can do that. Otherwise, I'll send it over to you in an email.
That's good. Happy to. So just based on that sort of getting yourself organized on SeedLegal's platform, we've created the pitch tool, which is a way of trying to pull all your information together into one place, and so you can easily then communicate it out with your investors. So if you come onto the platform, you can upload your pitch deck, your see it all there anyway. It's quite small. Details of the vision and everything that you're doing. We will be in the next sort of 2-3 weeks. This will be maybe an added feature coming on where you can upload other documentation as well. So you can have all your financials and a lot of your other documentation all here in one place as well. And then you can also then share it out directly to investors from the platform, so you can then manage and track your manage and track the outreach that you're carrying out in the promotion of your investment round.
So you put your vision, your problem, you upload your pitch deck, you've got your elevator pitch, got your video pitch. Okay, so you've all your documents here, and you share from here.
You share from here, and then you track from here who's replied and who hasn't replied.
Oh, super. Yeah. It's better than having on a Google Drive somewhere where you have to keep updating.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And people use Google Drives or Dropbox or different things. We I think SeedLegals is keen, as we sort of evolve and grow, to try and allow people to do get yourself organized on the platform, to then promote out there is in the platform, and then to close the round on the platform, and that we will then act as an introductory service, but we're not quite there yet. We need some our central bank permissions and things to fully build us out to where we want to get to. So based on our central bank permission rates, we'll have that done by 2027 or something. But fingers crossed.
2027. Okay. So for
maybe our friends at Central Bank will move quicker than I expect. Just
okay. But for now then, Michael, it's a platform to kind of organize all of your documents in the one place, share out with whoever's interested, and then they can view, because HBAN has something similar, doesn't it?
Yes, they do, and I can't remember what you call, but yes, they're it's gone out of my head, but yes, they use the same platform to share out all their decks and their information there as well.
Okay. All right.
As well, I would recommend using anything, whether it's the SeedLegals platform or another one. It's just that organization can become quite difficult to manage.
Yeah, no, it's really good, really important. Yeah.
And if you're doing the funding round using the platform as well, once they then use Pitch, you can then share directly out term sheets to investors. If they want to see any other your IP agreements and the other documentation that you have, you can also send it straight from the platform as well. So it also gets the potential investor used to SeedLegal's platform right from the beginning as well. So it gives them a little bit more confidence that when something arrives unexpectedly, they know what it is and who it's from. So yeah, so this is what I would always include in an investment pack for startups. So you have your deck and your one-page investment summary, and then as we spoke earlier, your supporting docs or your business plan, which go into all these areas in some more details, and increasingly videos.
Yeah.
Seems to be a big move towards video pitching as well, which is a rabbit hole of you can spend an absolute fortune of these things. I don't know. Based on some of my kids' TikTok videos, I'm starting to think that maybe TikTok could be a way to do it.
Okay.
But people like to see videos and they're easy to share.
Yeah.
And they make it more human as well.
Sure.
So yeah, and then so you've done all your homework. You've got all your documentation in place, and you're ready to go out to raise your investment. Do your homework and work your networks. It's slightly heartbreaking when you hear people say that they spoke to 150 potential investors, and it was the 151st where they eventually got the money. My thinking is, should you really have gone to at least 100 of those people? Have they ever invested in a company like theirs? Do they have funds available?
Yeah.
Get really, really focused in on understanding your company, stage of development and what you need, and then go to the people who invest in similar companies. And you were saying, Rose, about this is horrible amount of work you have to do. You can't stop growing your business while you do this. You need to have growth and progress, because you're gonna meet an investor for the first time. They're gonna say they're interested. Then you're gonna meet them for a coffee. Likelihood is that'll take a week and a half to get organized. Then they'll go out and have a thing to talk to people. Then you'll talk to them about another week and a half, and they'll think, really like this. What have you been up to? And when they say, "What have you been up to?" That's when you have to be able to say, "Well, we just onboarded 3 new customers and built this new feature."
Yes.
And that keeps them excited. So
yeah. Really important then to have a good team around you. I mean, because this takes bandwidth away from your business, doesn't it? And then also to reduce the number of investor meetings you're having, because you're not creating those wins if you're having coffee with 150 investors.
Exactly. And I think the same thing comes into, I think we were talking earlier about competitions and events and things. Be really selective of the things that you do there. We have Ireland. We have one of the most supportive environments for startups, and the amount of work that's being done right from early stage ideas at the colleges and the Leos right through to Enterprise Ireland and everything to do. There's so much great work being done, but you do have to be slightly careful about some of the showcase events and pitching events. Because all those organizations have to showcase work and therefore they want to bring you into pitch. Don't get dragged into stuff that benefits somebody else. You have to be supportive, but you also have to be quite selfish and pick and choose the things that you do.
Keep the end in mind.
Exactly. And building, loud about wins, as I was saying there, building your teams for you and looking outside Ireland. Our companies are massively attractive. Go to places where people have invested in similar companies. So whether that's UK, because it's the closest to speak English, or whether it's through the European networks. I know the EBAN conference in Cork in a couple of weeks is going to have a lot of investors and fringe events down at it. You'll see different funds who specialize in specific areas. I think specifically at the minute, if you're working in developing an environmental an ESG type product or a fintech product, go to where funds are looking for your type of business, because they'll be keen to support it. And take confidence from that as well. Similarly, work your LinkedIn profiles and things. I'm involved with an accelerator here in Belfast, and we helped a London-based fintech with a South African founder. She just completed a funding round with investors from an angel syndicate in Mauritius, a couple of Canadians, UK investors, some Irish investors, and one in Switzerland. So all done on Zoom.
Great.
So it just shows that if you have a strong enough, and how she got that, I think was the level of detail, organization, and vision that she had. They knew exactly what they were putting the money into. They knew what that money was going to be used for, and where they're all trying to get to. So
Yeah,
it worked. Yeah, and don't be shy. Not that. Well, you
that's
can't be an
great.
entrepreneur.
Great advice. Yeah, we can't be shy. Okay. And Michael, we're just coming to the end of our session now. So I just encourage anybody with any more questions just to pop them into the chat. Or also, Michael, you are inviting people to come to you directly. So hopefully your inbox will be full of inquiries. And
We're just going to say, we're happy to have conversations and help around all aspects of funding, whether or not it's even specifically related to the Seed Legals platform. Just happy to help in any way that we can, and make introductions or do anything.
That's super, because that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? In this, it's a real community, isn't it? And I think a few years ago, pre-pandemic, we used to do Entrepreneurs Anonymous sessions. We do once a month and meet in Dublin, and the various founders would kind of sit and people setting up would ask questions. And it was just really heartwarming and kind of practical help to listen to other founders talk about their experience, and saying, well, I shouldn't have taken money from those people, or I feel really trapped now in this in this environment, or we had a wonderful experience with that provider. Because there's a lot of providers such as yourself who have excellent experience in the specifics that founders won't have that information on. So thank you for contributing to today.
Not at all. And I think that point you're making there as well, there's an assumption that a tech founder will have the knowledge around different terms and term sheets and what a cap table and how it operates and how it functions. Yeah. Why would you have that knowledge?
No. Yes, it's not your job to have that knowledge. Yeah. So don't feel at all. And certainly years ago, I would have felt a bit conscious. I don't really know what that means. And now I don't care, because I think it's not my job to know what that means. But so I'd like to encourage everybody to get involved with the community. There's lots of thanks coming in, Michael, for you. And there's a capital letters, excellent presentation. So
cheers, Jerry. I owe you a pint. Thank you.
Okay. So look, thank you to everybody. And Michael, I think we'll come back and ask you some more another day, because it sounds like you're on your own journey as well there with Seed Legals.
I keep getting told I'm a startup within a startup here in Ireland. So yeah.
That's good. That's good. You can empathize with the rest of us. So
without a doubt.
Yeah, and we will we'll send out this presentation to everybody along with the recording. And Michael, you probably have some more docs you're going to share with us.
Yep, I'll tidy up this through today and then get it up over to the end of it today. Yeah,
and anybody with any questions, send them to michaelm@seedlegals.com or myself at rose@accountantonline.ie. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day. Bye now. Bye.